The whole class burst into laughter when Mr. Callahan, the smug AP calculus teacher, handed the chalk to the elderly janitor, Lillian Brooks. She was just a janitor, after all, a kind, quiet woman with hands weathered from years of honest labor. When Mr. Callahan sarcastically challenged her to solve the most difficult calculus problem on the board, no one expected anything more than an awkward chuckle and a quick retreat. But what happened next left every single person in that room speechless, jaws slack, and minds completely blown. The third period bell rang, but an unusual tension filled the air. Students in Mr. Callahan's class were accustomed to a strict routine, quiet focus, the tap of pens, and Mr. Callahan's stern voice leading them through complex mathematics. Today, however, something was different. Lillian Brooks stood near the door, mopping the polished floor like she always did. Her footsteps were silent, her presence almost invisible to the students who walked past her every day without a second glance. But Mr. Callahan had noticed her that day. Known for his biting sarcasm and flair for theatrics, he had something brewing. With a gleam in his eye, he turned from the board and addressed the class. "You know," he said, his voice dripping with condescension, "we've been at this equation for days. Maybe Lillian here can give it a shot." He pointed to the chalkboard where a particularly thorny calculus problem glared down at the students. Laughter rippled through the room. Lillian, mop still in hand, looked up in confusion, not immediately understanding the joke. "Come on, Lillian," Mr. Callahan said with a smirk. "You've probably seen enough numbers on the floor tiles. Why not try your luck with some real math?" More laughter. Some students chuckled, others openly sneered. Everyone expected Lillian to shy away. But Lillian Brooks was not just another janitor. She paused, straightened up, and made a choice. With quiet dignity, she placed the mop against the wall and approached the board. A hush fell over the room. Lillian took the chalk with steady hands. Her eyes scanned the equation, her brows slightly furrowed. What the students didn't know, what even Mr. Callahan had never imagined, was that Lillian had once been a top mathematics student at a prestigious university. Life, however, had redirected her. She left her academic dreams behind to care for family, working wherever she could. She became a janitor out of necessity, not lack of ability. Now, for the first time in decades, Lillian was back at chalkboard. The chalk whispered across the surface as she began writing. The room held its breath. Snickers faded into stunned silence as her hand moved with confidence, sketching out each line with purpose. Mr. Callahan's smirk disappeared. His arms, once crossed with smug certainty, dropped to his sides. Step by step, Lillian dismantled the equation. The students leaned in, disbelief written across their faces. When she placed the final line of the solution, she stepped back. The room was so silent, you could hear a pin drop. The equation, once insurmountable, now stood perfectly resolved. Lillian said nothing. She didn't turn to the class. She didn't smile or gloat. She simply returned the chalk to its tray and walked back to her mop. That was all she needed to do. The class remained frozen in their seats, stunned. What they had witnessed was not just a mathematical solution. It was the complete destruction of every assumption they had made about Lillian Brooks. The janitor had just outshone them all. From the back of the room, a whisper broke the silence. "Did she really just do that?" Another voice answered, filled with awe. "She's a genius." Mr. Callahan remained speechless, his face a storm of confusion and, slowly, something like admiration. The teacher who had mocked her was now forced to reevaluate everything he thought he knew. But Lillian didn't do it for the applause. She did it for herself, for the part of her that had been buried under years of quiet, unseen labor. She had taken back a piece of herself in that moment. In the days that followed, everything changed. Students who had once overlooked her now offered shy greetings. Some even asked for help with their homework. Whispers of MS. Brooks the Brain floated down hallways. Teachers began looking at her differently, not with pity, but with respect. One afternoon, Mr. Callahan knocked on the janitor's closet door. Lillian looked up from her cleaning bucket. He stood awkwardly in the doorway. "Ms. Brooks," he said, voice softer than usual. "May I have a word?" She wiped her hands and nodded. "Of course, Mr. Callahan." He stepped inside, glancing at the shelves of cleaning supplies, clearly out of his element. "I wanted to say, I'm sorry. I had no idea who I was dealing with." Lillian raised an eyebrow. "Most people don't. You've taught me something," he continued. "That brilliance doesn't always come from where we expect. I always thought I was the smartest person in the room. But I was wrong." She offered a small smile. "We all have our paths, Mr. Callahan. Mine led me here. But that doesn't mean I don't still carry who I used to be." He hesitated, then said, "I'd like to recommend you for a part-time tutoring position. I think you have something incredible to offer." Lillian was quiet for a moment. The offer stirred something in her, an old spark. But she shook her head gently. "Thank you, but I'm content. I found peace here." And she had. The halls of Wilson High, once filled with indifference, now carried a different energy when she walked by. Students nodded respectfully. Teachers stopped to chat. And though she never asked for it, she had earned a place in the heart of the school that no job title could define. Weeks turned into months. Lillian Brooks became a quiet legend. Her story spread beyond the school. She inspired not because she solved the calculus problem, but because she shattered every expectation with humility and grace. One day, Principal Romero approached her. "We're starting a district-wide initiative," he said. "Real-life stories of perseverance and quiet brilliance. I recommended you. Would you speak at the opening event?" Lillian hesitated. "I'm not sure I'm the right person." "You are," he said, "because what you did mattered. You showed us all what real strength looks like." So she agreed. At the event, she stood before an audience of students, teachers, and officials. The room fell silent as she spoke. "I'm not a genius," she began. "I'm just someone who never forgot who she was, even when the world did." When she finished, there was no thunderous applause, just a silence heavy with reflection and admiration. That, to Lillian, was more powerful than cheers. She walked off the stage quietly, knowing she had left something behind, a lesson not about math, but about the strength of spirit, the power of humility, and the importance of never underestimating anyone. From that day forward, no one at Wilson High saw her the same way again. And Lillian Brooks, janitor, mathematician, quiet warrior, kept walking the halls with dignity, her head held high, changing lives without saying a word.